Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back, Brandon, to the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show. I'm, of course, your host, Flex Shane. I got my eye, Brandon Adam. Go check us out on the Ethernet. That is X, YouTube, all that fun stuff. Check us out at the Flex Network 1. Brandon, it's very interesting. We've recently started making sure you join the Flex Network X tag, tweeting on that handle. There is a whole lot of Anthony Richardson builds being tweeted out there on X, on Twitter, because you love Anthony Richardson, and we're going to unpack it for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon, we're getting back to the basics today because we are officially, it is July 15th here in the United States of America, and of course, where I hail, Canada, and we are hot and heavy in draft season. Mainly just best ball. I'm in one Cock and Mamie Dynasty League, and actually our rookie draft just started today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's officially my last one, but Dynasty season officially, I'd say we've turned the page on that calendar. I think you'd agree with it, Brandon. But hey, man, how the hell you been? We got a lot going on over at DFS Army. How you been, brother?
Been really good. I think it's been a little bit of a break for us, which was good, and diving right back into this whole best ball scene, and it's been a lot of fun. Been able to go join another show with Jax Falcone over on the Undroppables, and you're going to be able to see myself and Flex Matt over on that as well for a little undrafted Seattle Seahawk talk. We'll be taking care of all the Seattle Seahawk media stuff for them, and we're super excited to do so. So as soon as our first show is coming up here soon, so please follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and support the team behind DFS Army Fantasy Football Show here too. And it's awesome, man. Like, it's our family's growing a little bit, and kind of more relationships are growing, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, we had Jax Falcone, or his real name, Scott Bellinger, of the Undroppables on the podcast and of the show, of course, last month. And listen, if you didn't have a chance to go check it out, go back into the podcast feed, go down, check out our show with Jax Falcone. It is still July, so that is an evergreen episode, well into draft season. And yeah, man, we had, well, especially you two had such great chemistry. You've been recruited to go and do some content over there. So listen, we do this because we absolutely love talking fantasy football, right? Like, we'd be talking about this stuff whether we are in front of a microphone or not. So we just appreciate all you coming out and listening to us rant about the players that we love and of our hot takes, of course. So we are still continuing to try to grow the DFS Army Fantasy Football Focus channel. So, hey, listen, if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We are trying to grow this channel, and this is what we live for, man. This is draft season. And today on the program, Brandon, we're going to go through, we're going to say ambitiously 5 rounds, the first 5 rounds of your draft, and effectively just kind of talk through some of the logic behind some of these players. A lot of our decisions, especially in the early rounds, are going to be micro decisions because you don't want to reach too much in ADP. Especially, again, we are in best ball season. Go check out underdog.com. Use promo code at DFS Army if it's your first time signing up, and there's a deposit match up to $100. But that's typically where we hail from is Underdog. And if you're playing more of a portfolio game, Brandon, then you're probably going to want to play it to the ADP a little bit. But if you're in one draft, we're going to talk about players that we love building our teams around, that we believe are foundational players. We're going to flirt with the idea of zero RB/hero RB builds and how we feel about that. And just as answering any questions that might come in through the chat. So, shall we get started, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
He's my best friend. He's my pal. He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
All right, brother. So let's get started right at round 1 in the drafts. And if you're looking at these early, especially best ball drafts, no surprise, it is very heavily tiered or geared towards the wide receiver position. But there are the top studs that are going to be going. So I'm just going to read off the running backs here and kind of see where they fall. And I think we understand why these guys are all in round one. So CMC, of course, is going one off the board pretty consistently. And then you've got Bijan Robinson and Brees Hall, middle of the draft. And then right around the 1-2 turn at pick 12 is Jahmyr Gibbs pretty consistently. So before we kind of get into the individual player takes, Brandon, I want to get your feel on your strategy going into this season, because there are relatively fewer running backs in round 1 and in round 2. A lot of these builds are naturally becoming either zero RB or hero RB builds where there's no running back taken in the first 2 rounds on a team. Where do you land on one of those? I mean, you do a lot of drafts, but if you had one draft, would you be gearing more towards the wide receiver look or the running back look this season, 2024?
So it really comes down on what holes, where you're selecting at in the draft order. Like for me, if you're going in the top 6, I like the hero RB with Achan, and I can roll with Achan as my hero RB, and be able to take a Chase, a Hill. I would even stack them with Hill, especially if I'm doing like one high upside lineup. I'm going to try and do as much correlation as possible. Tyreek, Achan stack, and go ahead and get Tua later. Totally fine with that. But if I'm getting anywhere from 7 to 12, I'm hoping to get 8 because I like having Brees Hall at 8 and then be able to loop around, and still somebody is going to get pushed down from the wide receivers to you to make it to you. So you're able to still get you got your hero, and then you can just rattle off wide receiver for the next 3 to 4 rounds. And you can stack up your wide receiver room while taking a guy in a Brees Hall that's got RB1 written all over him in that offense with Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, and possibly Devontae Adams, from what we've been seeing on Twitter and all sorts of rumor mill stuff. So a bunch of good stuff, but I prefer Brees over Bijan. That's just how I have it. But I don't mind Bijan there either. Where if those two guys are off the board though, that's when I start taking upswing I'm trying to swing for the fences a little bit, where I could take like a Garrett Wilson and double tap with like a Marvin and to get a Kyler stack later or something like that.
Where do you come out on like a Justin Jefferson versus Amon-Ra, that tier of wide receiver, which are actually going right before Brees and Bijan? Like, are you definitively taking the wide receivers in those positions?
Yeah, I'm not pushing up the running backs as high. I think Amon-Ra is set for a monster. I think he is solidifying himself as one of those guys that I think the TDs will come with him. He really didn't have a lot of TDs last year, so the TD upside is still there. And he just got paid the bag, so I think they're going to make sure he gets himself a lot of touchdowns. But Justin Jefferson, I'm starting to push him down my boards a little bit just because of the quarterback situation. I think, I don't know, like just because of the new additional news too, though, with Addison, I kind of had to pivot a little bit. With Addison possibly missing games. So there was another player from the Saints that had a DUI around the same time that ended up getting it through the court system. He ended up sitting from like week 14 to like week 17 or something like that for 3 games he missed. And so if you're going to miss 3 games of Addison, then that pushes Justin Jefferson ahead of a Brees still. But I don't know. I'm still debating. I'm worried about the quarterback stuff going on with Minnesota. I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan. I think he's maybe Alex Smith. I think that's where his ceiling could be. I don't see, Josh Allen upside or anything like that with him. I don't see that. I see an efficient quarterback that can make some throws deeper down the field, but I don't know if he's going to be able to run this offense like at its tip-top tempo that we're used to seeing with Minnesota. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. We'll see. Justin Jefferson's a tough one. He's been dropping in my board a little bit. I would take the Sun God over him, and put him right before Brees.
Yeah, I've been torn because you're going to be in that position a lot if you're right around that 5 spot in your drafts, and you really do have to make that decision between Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra. I've kind of split the baby on it, Brandon. I've basically I've had an opportunity now 4 times. I've gone Justin twice, and I've gone the Sun God twice. I do have a little concern overall about the touchdown upside of Amon-Ra. I think he scored, what was it, 10 last year? So that's to me was not 8. Okay, so maybe total touchdowns was around 10. So that's the only that's the slight edge that I give to JJ. Like if I only have one draft that I'm choosing one of these players, I'm probably going to go JJ because we've seen him pretty consistently, no matter what the quarterback position is, that he tends to produce. But listen, we're both massive Sun God fans. I mean, listen, if you play fantasy football, you probably are a massive Sun God fan. Nothing wrong with Alex Smith. Listen, Alex Smith was a respectable quarterback.
Yeah, but he's like why Alex Smith was never a game changer that was going to win you leagues. Like I don't see that. I see an efficient quarterback, good for the NFL, but for fantasy and what we do, I don't know. I think there's better plays out there, especially if you're going to attach yourself to Sam Darnold or JJ. I mean, I think Justin Jefferson is tough. I might even take Brees over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, no, and the more they kind of think about that, listen, like if you do want to just play the stacking game, especially if you're in best ball, I'm far more confident stacking Amon-Ra with Jared Goff way later in drafts.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jared Goff's free versus, listen, we don't know how long Sam Darnold's going to play. A month?
Yeah.
What if he's playing well? Like, there's a lot of freaking Sam Darnold truthers out there, right? People are convinced
he can throw the ball still. He's young.
He's still young, man. So that's kind of scary for me, right? Like in a perfect world, wouldn't you want JJ to sit for the entire season and learn behind a professional? So to me, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's pretty wild to me. So let's just read off the top 6 picks here. You got Christian McCaffrey. I'd say pretty de facto 101, right? You've got the 101. Are you pulling the trigger there, or would you consider CD?
No, I'm taking CD.
You are? Okay. Why is that?
I think as we get older with CMC, I think there's just more and more risk associated with him. So I'm just going to take the young stallion in CD. There's nobody else besides Ferguson in that offense. I mean, they got Zeke. That's it. And then they got Jalen Tolbert and the ever-present Brandon Cooks on rosters. And I just think CD has he's shown the upside. I think he's going to have consistency. He's about to get paid huge money. I think he gets paid before Dak gets paid. And I think he's about to go nuclear again for the second straight year. So yeah, I lean CD there. I fade CMC 1 pick for CD, and then I'll take Hill 3rd. Yeah,
I've seen it happen. Generally speaking, CMC goes pretty firmly at 1 overall in most of my drafts, but you certainly see CD there. I probably am taking Christian McCaffrey. I'm just playing the odds a little bit here, and then coming back around the turn, like you can get, I don't know, like a Mike Evans or Devonta Smith if you want to close out that wide receiver position. But you definitely have more flexibility as well, because a player that we're going to talk about a little bit later, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too quickly, Brandon. But there's a certain running back that you can take right around the 2-3 turn if you want to go wide receiver early, but not be completely goose-egged on the running back position. So after that, you've got Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm pretty comfortable in that specific order. We talked about JJ and Amon-Ra, but between Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase, like to me, they're in a tier together. I'm comfortable taking either of them, but I'm probably taking Tyreek Hill over Jamar Chase just because we've seen just the absolute insane upside that is Tyreek Hill. Whereas Jamar Chase, there just was more competition. It's a different offense. They don't throw the ball as often. So you're cool with that as well?
Yeah, I'm cool with that as well. I'll change. I'm gonna put Brees as my second RB off the board, and then I would, like I said, I would put Justin Jefferson right behind him. I would take Brees ahead.
Okay, which then gets us to the next two picks. It's Bijan and Brees Hall. I'm pretty cool with that as well. And this is actually and then a relatively new development to finish out the draft. Puka Nacua was going pretty consistently ahead of AJ Brown, which I didn't think was correct.
Crazy.
But now it's AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, and Jahmyr Gibbs to round out the end of the first round. Listen, AJ Brown, I think people, for whatever reason, have this stink in their mouth after the frankly lackluster limp to the end of the season by the Eagles last year. Yeah. But man,
he has
time heals wounds. He's got it going. He is complete. He's in his super prime right now. AJ Brown to me has to go ahead of Puka Nacua.
Oh, 100% every time. Yeah, that's not.
I'm probably picking Garrett Wilson.
I'm fading Puka all the way down below. I would probably take Puka. I'd put him right before Marvin and right after Gibbs. That's where I'm putting Puka.
Yeah, so right around so
13.
You might get him in a few drafts. I think. Listen, we're like, again, we're just in like the hot and heavy for wide receiver underdog drafts right now, but I think that Puka is going to fall in regular drafts, probably somewhere early to mid round 2. Like, to me, that's kind of the sweet spot, right? Especially if more news comes out with Cooper Kupp being healthy. Like, is he really going to be completely just pushed aside? I don't think so. And listen, clip. Hill has already talked about walking away. Listen, yes, I know he wants to become a professional porn star. And he said it. Ladies and gentlemen, he said that when he retires from football. But doesn't he have like 11 children, Brandon? Something like that?
Dude, he's got a lot of alimony to pay. And every other sentence out of his mouth is about getting paid these days. So he's not going anywhere. Like, as a dynasty asset, Hill is stable. And I still think it's a 3-year window with him, easy, just because of how he gets open and who he is and how smart he is and how he uses his difference-making space, how fast he is in space. I think he's going to be elite for another 3 years. Like, there's no doubt about it to me that he can still be healthy because he is a thick-bodied wide receiver that really rarely he doesn't get hurt too often. I mean, he has an ankle here and there, but he plays through a majority of the time. And so I'm not worried at all about Tyreek Hill. Like, this whole retirement stuff, like, this narrative is so overblown, and it kind of just shows, like, like, you get kind of swayed pretty easily when it's pretty easy to see that Tyreek is angling for another contract and he wants 4 years. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to be a stud for 3 more years in Miami.
Yeah, he's only 30 years old. Like, he's young. He's in his super prime still. And
he's fast, dude. Like, he can lose 2 or 3 steps. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. How do you feel about Jahmyr Gibbs there? You comfortable taking him right around the end of the
love Jahmyr Gibbs?
One?
I'm all about Jahmyr Gibbs. I have him ahead of Puka. I think Jahmyr Gibbs gives you the upside of getting into the top 3. Especially if David Montgomery loses any kind of time to injury for any kind of reason, or even if they, tail back 10% of the carries from Monty and push it towards 10% more of the carries goes toward Gibbs, that 10% can be life-changing for what he can do per week with fantasy points per game. That can push him into the 20-point area pretty easily. And it sounds like, to me, from everything I've seen coming out of Detroit, they are trying to get this guy the ball in the air more often. He really didn't get utilized to the max of what we really thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be used more like Alvin Kamara, but that really wasn't the case this year. But I think that happens this year. I really think we see the upside of Gibby, and I think he'll easily be in. He has every chance to be in the top 3 as a Bijan, a Brees, a CMC, all those guys. He has every right to have that arc. So I'm all in with Gibbs if I can get him.
Yeah, I'd love to see him put on just even 3 or 4 pounds, right? Because that'd be all muscle and just get rocked up, man. Because then he could probably handle that workload like a CMC. Because listen, CMC put on weight clearly, right? Since he was a rookie.
It took him 3 years to get to what he's doing. Like that's what Gibbs is what 20. Like the dude is so young. Like he has so much time to become CMC. But I really think with just the way they want to get him involved in the pass game, that's gonna allow his floor is just going to be raised every week because you could just auto 4.5 targets to him, 5 targets to him every single game, and when you can do that, that's a great floor. I'm all in with that kind of explosive guy.
Yeah, he's 22 years old, man. Like he's super young.
So young,
he's just,
super young.
And like there's a maturity game, right? Like I love him where he's going there. I was saying before that we went live that I haven't really had a chance to get a lot of Jameer because just where I've been landing, I haven't really ended up right around that turn. But I love Jameer there. Let's go to round 2 though, Brian, because I found it's kind of a hard round to navigate, right? I find myself pulling the trigger on a player that I'm like not totally comfortable with, or it's a player that we're really projecting out. And while there could be that upside, there's a little bit of risk there, right? And look no further than the first pick overall in round 2, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, of the Arizona Cardinals. To me, this is early. This is early for Marvin.
Yeah, I think that's a little early. If everything was, if I could set his ADP at where I really, and I'm super high on Marvin. I am very high on Marvin. This is nothing about that. I just feel like it's a big step for a rookie to come in and be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. You know what I mean? Yep. Like that's a big leap to do. He can do it because he is that guy. Like he has that in him. But I would take some other guys that have a more dare I say more dynamic players for fantasy that I could target right there, that I can be above ADP on and target and get this one player. Where this is where I'm taking this player. Said player is Devon Achane. I believe. I think Devon Achane belongs right next to and right behind Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm well above ADP on him, and I'm very excited to be. I think Devon Achane has some unbelievable upside that really people really quite aren't understanding right now. He was averaging 17.4 points per game already, and he was barely even on the field. He had only 40.6% opportunity share. That's 41st in the NFL for that time. Snap share total 43%. That's not staying there. I guarantee that's moving up. Even if it moves up to 50 to 51, 52%, that's a huge deal for him. Team run plays run plays per game for him is 26. That's top 16 in the NFL. Fantasy points per opportunity is number 1 at 1.36 points per opportunity. That's ridiculous. He was 9th in touchdowns, only played 11 games. This guy is just an efficiency monster. True yards per carry, 6.6 yards, number 2 in the league. Yards per touch, number 1 in the league, 7.7. Juke rate, number 3, 27.7% of the time he's juking the first of 8 defensemen. Breakaway run rate, number 1 in the league, 12.6%. This guy finishes runs at a ridiculous clip, and all he had was 100 touches, 100 carries. And if this guy plays 16 games, like there is no way he doesn't push into almost the 180 carries. If he gets to 180 carries, that is going to propel him into being able to be right with the Jahmyr Gibbs, right with the Bijan Robinson on efficiency. And everything we've been seeing coming out of Miami is talking about him being a la their wide receiver 3. They want to get him and Raheem Mostert on the field at the same time. They want to put this guy in the slot. At all the mini camps I've been seeing from every single reporter, this guy is just destroying DBs out of the slot and out of the backfield. McDaniels has been very open in the fact that they want to get this guy more touches through the air. And he barely did. He really didn't have that much. He had a little bit of a target rate, but I mean, on targets per route run, he has a real low route runs, but on targets per route run, he was at 23%. So whenever he did run a route, they got him the fucking ball. So they know that they have an Alvin Kamara, Chris Johnson type of player, and they know that he needs a running mate, which is totally fine. This offense runs with two backs. I am totally fine having two backs in this offense for Achane. Achane is still going to have the floor to be able to smash and be able to cover and be able to get on the field enough to where he's going to be consistent every single week as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, well, and that's the big caveat to Brian is the fact that because he's a smaller back, like that's the key, right? And so I'm not sure I'm with you on 180 carries, but maybe that's just like the very bullish outcome. If he gets 180 carries, that does propel him to RB1 like overall discussion.
I know.
I think,
yes.
So I think the more I think about it, like where you're talking about him here, right at the 1-2 turn, I think again, as we get closer to draft season, as more, shall we say, casual fans start to go and play in their fantasy leagues, people are going to be afraid to get goosed out on the running back position. And a player like Devon Achane is going to probably spring himself into the top half of round 2. I definitely agree with you there. I mean, which we love him where he's going now. Like we talked about, like, if you start with, well, I was just going to say, if you start with CD, like he is going at pick 24 overall.
Yeah.
So that's the round. Yeah. You can start with CD, Devon Achane, and like a Mike Evans even, or pick your choice, right? Like there's a lot of good players at that 2-3 turn there. And sorry, I interrupted you. What were we going to say, B?
The thing is that this guy all he has to do is go from 9 carries a game to 12 to 13. That's all he has to do. We are not talking about a guy that needs 25 carries, to get going. He does not need that. I don't want that for him. All I want is a little bit more time on the field, give him a 10% snap share tick in the right direction. And the TD upside for him is ridiculous. Like that's what people aren't understanding is that he's the second most dynamic player on the Miami offense. It's not Waddle. Waddle averages only 14 and a half PPR points a game. We're talking about Devon Achane that walked in with a crowded running back room and still put up 17.4 PPR points a game. And he barely even touched the field, dude. Like this is a special talent. And if things go correctly, I know this is the offseason hype and all that stuff, but he has stated that he's put on 5-6 pounds of muscle this offseason. And last year he was a little bit skinny because he wasn't lifting as heavy because he had an AC separation that he was dealing with early in the season. So he wasn't as big as he should have been. So if he can get a little bit bigger and we can get a little bit more through the air, this guy is every bit of Alvin Kamara and has every bit of that upside that we saw out of him. And if Raheem Mostert goes down, which he is very possible, this guy only was healthy for 1 pro year of his whole life. If this guy misses 4-6 games, good night, Devon Achane. Or let's say doomsday happens. Tyreek Hill loses some time. Waddle misses time. They all, like Devon Achane, any time of opportunity, I think McDaniel is going to lean on Achane because he knows that he is something to deal with and that they can scheme him into very leveraged plays. And I'm excited for him because he is a superstar in the waiting and people are undervaluing him. And he has all the upside of a CMC, a Brees, all the upside. It's just he weighs a little bit less than them. And
one thing too
blows my mind,
Brendan, that if we think about just the position of the Miami Dolphins, right? Like they've been making the playoffs, but they haven't been able to get over the hump, or they're just missing the playoffs.
Mhm.
So how do you fix that? Well, you guarantee yourself a home game. So I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas. They're
Mm-mm.
going to want to continue to win, and they're going to want to get that home field advantage. So instead of playing in Kansas City in subterranean
Yeah.
temperatures, they want to
Yeah.
play in balmy Miami, Florida, right? Like that's where they're going to want to play. So you're going to put your best players on the field. Devon Achane absolutely gives them the opportunity to win, and it gives your fantasy team a chance to win as well. Let's move on here because
Sure.
there is, again, a flatness here, but it's a player that we love. After Marvin Harrison, it goes Drake London, Jonathan Taylor, Chris Olave, Nico Collins.
Mm-hmm.
I love Drake London. I think we've talked a lot about Drake London on the show. So just for the people, I mean, definitely go back and listen to anything we've been talking about. We got a lot of players to get through, so I'm not going to go on the Brendan Adam take. But for the record, ladies and gentlemen, Drake London has an absolute opportunity to smash this year. We love where he's going here. Do you think he's high enough? Is my one question to you, Brandon.
Drake London is. I have him ahead of Marvin. I would take him ahead of Marvin.
Me too.
I love Breece Hall, Drake London start. I love that so much. I think that's a great start because it gives you a lot of outs for quarterback with Kirk. I think Kirk Cousins is going to unlock Drake London, and we're going to finally see Drake get 150 targets. I think he's going to get ridiculous. Yeah. I think he's going to get ridiculous targets. And so if that happens, I don't know. Like he hasn't proved it. He hasn't proved it yet. Like, but I believe in the scheme. I believe in the coaching staff, and I believe that Drake has it in him to be that number one wide receiver that is right there with the big boys. I think he can do it.
Yeah. It wasn't very long ago where, like, for all those who are in Dynasty or with the rookie drafts, like Drake, Brian Thomas Jr., he's like a beta version of Drake London when Drake London was in college. Like Drake London was that guy in college, super efficient. Like his superpower was that deep ball, and that's what
contested catches.
That's what the captain can get to him, right? So we're absolutely loving Drake London in this spot. Jonathan Taylor, he's actually creeped up a little bit in the last few days. Yeah. I see the grimace on your face. I think he is a nice, fine, safe pick here in round 2, right? Keep in mind there was a contract issues last year. It was a little dysfunctional. He ended up missing the first part of the season. He just really never quite got going. But if the Colts are healthy, so that's a big, Anthony Richardson's got to be in the game. It's going to open up so much for Jonathan Taylor. He's not the running back you think of in terms of catching the ball, but he's very proficient at catching the ball, right? So he's going to get you points through the air. He's going to get you points on the ground, and he's going to be on the field pretty consistently. So I like where he's going here simply because when you look at the next batch between like the Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Brandon Ayuk, that's the next group of players going. And if you don't love one of those wide receivers, because I can tell myself a story for each of those guys as to both a bull case as well as a bear case, where I'm not super comfortable with Nico Collins because, well, there's Tank Dell, there's Stephon Diggs. Is CJ Stroud going to continue to push forward, right? So there's just like a little, can Nico repeat the efficiency that he had last year, right? Like he was number 2, Brandon, in yards per route run at 3.24. Like, can he actually repeat that? Or is it just more of like a result of CJ Stroud? Chris Olave, love the talent. He's still a Saint, right? Well, what did the Sun God say about his bro? He's like, nobody in the New Orleans locker room thinks they have the opportunity to win the Super Bowl this year. Nobody. So, like, worries you a little bit. Brandon Ayuk, listen, there's the contract talks right now. He's not happy. He's consistently going out to social media. So, like, when you start telling yourself that story, Brandon, I can see choosing Jonathan Taylor. He was a sexy pick 3 years ago. A little bit of that luster's come off. So I'm happy with that pick, but I wouldn't say I'm running to the keyboard to go make that pick. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm not. So my bull case for Anthony Richardson is the fact that he's going to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if he leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns, that means Jonathan Taylor takes a hit in order for him to do that. So I think Jonathan Taylor, yes, is going to be extremely, extremely explosive, extremely efficient. I just feel like some of that TD shine that he had 2 years ago, where he had 18 rushing touchdowns, that I don't think that is in the wheelhouse, unless maybe it is, who knows, but it could be. But I don't mind. I'd much rather have a Jonathan Taylor over a Chris Olave, over a Brandon Ayuk, over a Jalen Waddle, so over a Devontae Adams. So I don't mind where Jonathan Taylor's going. I just have Achane above him because I just feel like Achane's upside is nuclear. So if you're searching between, let's say Jonathan Taylor's off the board, and if you're staring at Chris Olave, Nico Collins, Ayuk, Adams, Waddle, or Barkley, just take Achane, take the upside, and focus on wide receivers the rest of the time. And then you got yourself a unicorn athlete in your lineup that, when healthy, is a superstar, and just handcuff them. If you're going to own any of the RBs in Miami, you got to own 2 of them. It's got to be Achane and Wright, or Mozart and Wright. That's it. You got to own Wright. If you own Wright, that's the keys to the kingdom. You're safe. So get that done. You'll be very excited when you do that. But I'm pushing Olave down. I love Nico Collins where he's going. I think Nico Collins belongs where he's going. I think he has every bit of the upside and efficiency that he had this year. He's not coming off the field at all. I think he's the only pure X on this roster, and it's quite obvious he's the most explosive player on per route run, which what he did. If you go by history, his name is right next to guys like Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. and like all sorts of big time names, So I'm cool with Nico Collins where he's going, fading Ayuk, fading Barkley, don't mind Waddle, don't mind Adams, don't mind Evans, don't mind Devontae Smith, and then that gets us out of round 2.
Round 2, yeah. So kind of where I'm at, like I like Chris Olave and Nico Collins there. I'm probably taking Nico over Chris Olave, but it's really close for me. There's an
100%.
opportunity. There's a pretty good chance. There is definitely a realm of possibility where Nico doesn't quite hit on that ADP, but none of these guys are good. If you compare the fantasy points that these guys produce this season versus historical mid-round 2 wide receivers or mid-round 2 players, I think we're going to be a little bit disappointed. Like, that's just how I'm feeling about round 2 this year in general.
That's why Achane's there, baby. That's why
you got to just take your pick. Now, I definitely am not out on Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon's going to have a season this year, man. He brings culture to a locker room.
I got it.
Right. And he is everything professional. He does everything. He runs the ball with perfection. He catches the ball with perfection. He's a leader on the field. Like, he's a player that guys want to win for, right? Like, people are going to let's do it for Saquon, right? Like, in the NHL, Brandon, where it's like, okay, the captain's going to be the first guy to lift the Stanley Cup, but then it's like that veteran, it's that wily old veteran who's been playing for 12 years. Like, that's going to be Saquon Barkley when the Eagles take home the Super Bowl this year, which that's my boldish prediction. I think it's going to be the Eagles. Yes, Mike Yeager. This is catering to our audience that are on right now, but I think it's going to be the Eagles to take it home this season. It's going to come.
Okay, I don't mind Saquon. Yeah. I'm not like a hard fade on him at all. I probably would take Saquon above Jalen Waddle though. In ADP, I would probably take him. I would take him over Devontae.
I feel like Saquon,
you can move him. You can move him.
Honestly, Brandon, I think where Saquon and JT are going, I think they should be swapped. Like, where Saquon's going is where I think JT should be going, and I think Saquon should be right there, right after Jahmyr Gibbs, just because Gibbs is just like, he's so special. But I'm probably taking, for me, it's like Jahmyr Gibbs, probably Drake London, and then I'm comfortable taking Saquon right there. Guys, I'm really not comfortable with this season. I'm not comfortable with Brandon Ayuk, and I'm not comfortable with Deebo Samuel where they're going. Deebo may be a little bit more just because he's going later, but man, doesn't Deebo just like have the recipe for like just absolute cliff? Like to me, he could be pretty solid, but he's also the type of player, man. We've seen it where he just takes an absolute dive off the cliff, and that just I don't think it's going to happen, but I could absolutely see it happening this year, right? And it's one of the reasons why they said, "Oh no, maybe we're not going to trade Brandon Ayuk. Maybe we'll just trade Debo, because maybe Debo's got a little bit more of that name brand on him." So that worries me a little bit. I mean, Mike Evans, he's aging like a fine wine, so I'm totally comfortable with.
Totally fine, yeah.
Man, listen, and maybe it's obvious, Brandon, but if I chose my draft pick, I'm choosing like the 101 or the 102. Like I want one of those top 2 picks because there are such good players at the end of round 2 and to start of round 3 this year.
Yes,
like to me, it's absolutely gorgeous, just beautiful.
It's very. I don't mind. I don't mind the end honestly, I can build out something that I really like from everywhere, but
yeah.
But having that, being able to start something with like Jamar Chase is so nice.
It's so special. It's just pleasurable. Okay, so then after that, let's get into round 3. And Brandon, I know we are ambitious. We said we were going to get through 5 rounds. I knew it wasn't going to happen. We'll get through 3.
Just go quicker.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go quicker. All right. Round 3. Let's list off the first 3 players here. We got Devonta Smith, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, and I'm going to throw Cooper Kupp in there because that's really a tier of running backs there. I kind of like Malik over all those guys, man.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Like,
doesn't Malik Neighbors just have like Odell Beckham Jr.'s like rookie season written all over him, man?
Jamar Chase supercharged. Like
they are the same. Those 3 players are the same guy. They are the same archetype of player. They can do it all.
Yeah, he's a superstar. Man. He's a superstar. I love him. If you can get him in Dynasty, I'd be excited about that. I on a rebuild team, I just acquired him and to store some value in him, and I think he's a superstar. For this year though, the volume is going to be there. He's going to be dripping with targets, so I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. That's totally fine. Where I think the value miss to me in this round is, dare I say, Kyren Williams.
You think he's too high or too low?
I think he's too low. I think Kyren Williams has every bit of the upside of what a Saquon poses, of what any of the guys that we were just talking about. This guy was Christian McCaffrey light for the games that he was healthy last year. Yeah. And with Blake Corum, I don't mind Blake Corum at all being there because it will just allow Kyren to stay healthy for the whole year. So instead of, I think his points per game could go from like 21 to like 19. And that is awesome. Still.
Yeah.
That is still awesome. That's still awesome. And I don't think Mike Evans is going to be getting 19 PPR points a game. I don't think a Debo is going to do that. I don't think a Jalen Waddle is going to do that. Like Kyren Williams, I think Kyren Williams is a serious dark horse to finish in the top 5 for the RBs, and nobody's really talking about it. And I see him getting pushed further and further down drafts, and I just completely disagree with it.
Yeah, I don't mind where he's going right now. I think probably, like, for me, it would be based on these ADPs. You got Devon Achane, which we both agree can probably go higher. Devonta Smith, Malik Neighbors, and I feel like I would probably take Kyren above DK and Cooper Kupp.
Yes,
but there's still a little bit of worry with Kyren Williams because people. I mean, listen, a lot of us play Dynasty nowadays, right? Like that, his profile coming into the league was not super sexy, right? But then you can't.
Guess what?
It's the same thing with Puka. You can't deny what they did last year, right?
Like, Fuck no, you can't. And you cannot. And they're denying it with Kyren right now, but not with Puka. And that's what's driving me nuts is that I don't really care about Blake Corum. Blake Corum is insurance for the season. I think he's more of I think he's going to have some pop-up games. Sure. I think he could. Could Kyren pull a hamstring, miss 2 weeks? Sure. Why not? 3 weeks. Why not? I'm still taking Kyron and that points per game over a lot of these names I'm seeing that are just, cliff wide receivers and Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Debo. I would still take the young legs of Kyron Williams and that monster efficiency he had with that running style and that line and that offense with that coach. Yeah, man, I'm still in on Kyron. Like I said, if you're taking Kyron, just handcuff with Blake Corum and be done with it. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we're looking at history, Brandon, like Deshaun McVay, running back 1, is typically going to produce the shit out of your season, right? Like he's a player you want on your roster. So I see it. I mean, of course, like there's some pretty prominent names in the industry.
I know Podfather
that are talking him down. The Podfather, yeah. Which I mean, listen, he's got a lot of influence in the industry, and he's a very, very smart man. But there's some risks there if you completely fade a player like this. I mean, something that we like to ask ourselves. This might even be a Kozlowskiism or whatever, but can that player hurt you, right? If you fade this player, can he ruin your season?
Mm-hmm.
And Kyron's the type of guy we saw last year that he could ruin your season if you.
He could ruin your season.
Williams. Just like
either way, by getting hurt on the waiver wire, staying healthy and killing.
Yeah. Brandon, last year in the waiver wires after week 1, I'm like, fuck it, I'm not going to go in on Kyron, man. And guess what? That hurt me. That hurt me, man.
Yep.
So yeah, he's going right after Cooper Kupp, man. Yeah, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, like they're fine. They don't really have.
I would put him. I would literally. I'm taking. Yeah, I'm moving where Achane is sitting at ADP. That's easily where I would put Kyron
should be
right now.
Yeah, it's funny. So we got Mike Yeager in the chat saying Kyron is issues Pollard. Is it Mike Yeager or Mike Dickinson right now that we're talking to? Because Dickinson's kind of the same way. Maybe. He's totally out on him. Okay, then a player that I love. I feel like he's too low. DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Tank Dell. I freaking love
that's
that
a good
pocket.
tier.
I know you're not in on Stephon Diggs, but where he's going, man. He's still a targeter. We saw it last year. It was more of a personality thing. The reason I would be lower on Nico Collins and where he's going right now isn't because of Nico Collins. It's because I still think Stephon Diggs is good. I still think Tank Dell. I mean my words. I wasn't in on him last year because I thought he was too damn small. He is special and he's healthy. And of course, Michael Pittman, a player that got peppered last year. We're both convinced he's going to be peppered this year. He's probably one of your highest owned players, right? Highest roster players is Michael Pittman. So, yeah, where we're at there, like I'm loving that. DJ Moore, my only obviously pause is the fact that he's got a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. Keenan Allen's now on the team, so targets are going to be pulled away from him. But that's probably why DJ Moore is going in mid-round 3, not mid-round 2, right?
Yeah, I love DJ Moore. I think he's a dark horse to be really up in the top 6. I think he could get to that point with Caleb. I think Caleb is going to be a godsend for that offense. But yeah, I was looking up stats here. I'm trying to look up stats. But Pittman, I think Pittman people are overlooking Pittman for some reason. I think they're worried about the pass attempts with Anthony Richardson. And I don't see why you would be that. Like, I don't see why you would think that. If every single quarterback that's ran this system can run at tempo. If you look at every single one of them, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, like all these, the Eagles tree, they all run quickly with the quarterbacks, and I don't see why Anthony Richardson would change that. I actually think he's an absolute horse, and he won't be tired at all, and he's going to be a superstar when it comes to all that. So I'm excited for him.
Well, I think the reason being is that one of the criticisms with Anthony Richardson coming into the league was his accuracy. He wasn't the most accurate quarterback, right? So that would probably be why people are giving it pause. I mean, listen, when Gardner Minshew was in town last year, like he peppered the shit out of Michael Pittman. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm still totally comfortable being in on Devontae Adams. Just because he's going to be hyper-targeted, right? Like, yeah, he's going to be hyper-targeted where he's at there. It's going to be the same with Michael Pittman, right? Like, yeah, they've got some supporting cast, but it's the Michael Pittman show. it's going to be Michael Pittman, Anthony Richardson, and Jonathan Taylor are going to be that offense. And I'm cool with that, man. I'm there all day for it. Adonai Mitchell, fine player for the deep ball, but he's not going to demand a lot of volume, right? It's going to be all Pittman. Or do you disagree?
Pittman's going to get almost a 30% target share. Like book it. Like he's going to get ridiculous amount of the target share pie. But as for your boy Diggs, I don't see that. I don't see that happening at all, dude. His efficiency really dropped off last year. I don't know if that was due to attitude or what, or if he was just due to productivity and getting older and not separating as well. Yards per target, 62nd in the NFL at 7.4 yards. That's not great. Yards per reception at number 77th in the league, 11.1. I think Tank Dell is a more efficient player than him and does more at this point in the offense where he can be ran out of all three positions. I really have a hard time thinking that Diggs is going to be running at the flanker. I really don't know if he's going to be getting all the flanker routes. If he gets all the flanker routes, okay. But I don't think he's gonna. I think he's going to be moved in for 11 personnel into the slot. I think that's where he's going to live. I think he's going to be a Keenan Allen type of representation. But I think both of those players that moved are going to have regression. I think Rome is a sneaky guy to get for this year versus getting Keenan Allen. I think Rome is a better player right now. Tank Dell can do more for the offense and is best friends with the quarterback. I just don't see Stephon Diggs being this volume hog that he was. 160 targets is not happening, man. It is not happening.
I don't think so either, but I don't think it's going to happen for any of these players. I think that's the issue. I mean,
basically, at that point, then, if it comes to that, if that's where you're going, you have to go with the efficiency metrics, and that lies with Nico and Tank, and it's not Diggs, right?
Yeah, right? No, I see what you're saying. I mean, listen, like these ADPs are basically saying, or drafters are telling us that we don't know which one of these three players are really going to produce, but we think it's going to be Nico Collins, and then it's literally a coin flip between Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. So are you taking a wily veteran who's showing it consistently year in, year out? First half of last season, basically, when you look at his numbers, it was all the first half of the season. So that's why, to me, it's more so of a personality thing. It's Josh Allen was just kind of sick of the whole situation, and then ultimately he ended up on a different team.
I don't know.
We're gonna have this is gonna be a fun storyline to see play
big time. Because in our chat, this is a big dividing topic in our private chats, and I think Diggs is going to be great for real NFL, but for fantasy, I think people that are drafting him right here, I think Michael Pittman outscores him easy. I think Tank Dell outscores him. I think DJ outscores him. I think Kyron outscores him. I think Cooper outscores him. I think let's go further down. I think Amari Cooper outscores him. I think Isaiah Pacheco outscores him. I think Travis Etienne outscores him. Like,
so you're out. You're out on Diggs. You're basically out on Diggs.
Yeah, I'm out on Diggs. There is no possible way I'm drafting Diggs on any roster of mine. I am ready to be wrong on Diggs because of the opportunity cost that he comes at. I'm just taking the more efficient, cheaper guy. Go ahead.
Dynasty focus question here. What is Stephon Diggs worth in Dynasty currently? And what are you willing to sell him at if you're trying to get him off your team? Let's just say neutral team, not necessarily rebuild, not necessarily going for it, but neutral team.
I would try and go trade. I would try and go trade for Ladd McConkey straight up.
So like Brian Thomas Jr. the 112, the 201 sort of thing.
Yeah,
kind of where he's
I would try and do that or a couple seconds and move on.
Yeah, and just get him off your roster because you're.
Yes, I could do more. I could do more with the money. I could do more with the cash on hand with the picks.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've got Stephon Diggs because you traded him.
It's hard to sell
2 years ago. Yeah. He's tough to sell, man. He's tough
to
sell. I think people they're trying to get a deal on him. They kind of want a second. Like Here,
Yep.
take my second, my 25 seconds, and let see how it is. I wouldn't take that. That's why he's still on my team.
You know what a smart pivot would be? A pivot to Amari Cooper with Stephon Diggs. Amari Cooper,
like that's a great arbitrage play. That's one of our like de facto shows is our arbitrage plays. It's players that we like that. Hey, take this. You like this guy? Take this guy later. Okay, let's just finish up round 3 here, Brendan, and then shit, man, we got so much content to talk about. We'll talk about the other rounds a little bit later. But to round it out, we got Zay Flowers, Sam Laporta, and Sam Laporta is the tight end 1, and then right after that at 4.1 is Joshy Allen. I kind of like Zay Flowers there, man. I feel like he's going to be sneaky. Once again, he's kind of the only show in town. Yes, they have some other tight ends, and yes, the big dogs in town, Derrick Henry, now Baltimore Raven, but at the wide receiver position, man, Zay Flowers, I think probably 140 targets this year?
Yeah, I would take Zay over Tank. I would take Zay over Stephon.
Really? Okay. Interesting. That's a hard take
in
for
that,
you.
In that ADP. Yeah, I would take Zay over Tank right now, just because of the targets being consolidated for Zay. That's a big concession for me, for sure. But I would take Tank. I would take Zay over T 100%. Yeah. Like I think the hot take is that I would take Tank. I would take Zay over Diggs.
Zay over Diggs. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, because Diggs is at 32. Zay's at 35.5 in ADP.
I kind of like that. To me, this is like a sexy round, right? Whereas like round 2, it's like, yeah, okay, there's some great players in there, but like this is like a sexy round where you're like you're picking your guy. You're saying, fuck you, Stephon Diggs. I'm not taking you on my fantasy team. Let's go Tank Dell. Let's go Zay Flowers. Where are you at on Sam Laporta? Do you like him there as your tight end 1? I'm not getting a lot of Sam. I've got 1 share of him so far in my best ball leagues just because I don't want to get goosed on him. But I think it's too early still.
Nah, I'm fading tight end to Ingram or Fergie in my best balls. That is the way to go, guys. There is no reason to, unless you're stacking with said quarterbacks. I'm fading the elite tight ends until Ingram and Fergie, because both of those guys have the same exact opportunity target share in their offenses. And guess what? Ferguson had the most red zone looks for the tight end position. And I think he has way more touchdown upside, and nobody was added to the Dallas Cowboys. So fade tight end. I'm totally fine with fading tight end and just move on from that. So I have no Laporta. I have no Andrews. I have very little Dalton Kincaid. I have very little. I have a little bit of Pitt. I have a little bit of Pitts.
I think you got a decent amount. Relatively to those other players, you got more Trey McBride, but that's just more so because you want to stack him with Kyler.
Yeah, because I'm doing Kyler stacks. Yeah, so that was more when I'm taking Trey McBride, I have to take Kyler. So that's the only time I'm taking a Trey McBride. I'm not taking him solo or anything like that. It's just strictly for correlation, because I think the value of Kyler has top 5 upside, top 3 upside. His rush floor, I would not be surprised if he had 8-10 touchdowns this year. He returned to 10 double-digit rush touchdowns. He has that in his arsenal. He was still 5.5 yards per carry. He had 33.5 pass attempts when he came back off of ACL. That is up there with his career year when he was a top five QB. So I'm all in with Kyler. The quarterbacks I'm all in with are Anthony Richardson, Kyler, and I like Jordan Love. If I'm doing somebody else like that, I like Jordan Love, and I like to stack. If I'm doing a Jordan Love lineup, I am getting Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, or I'm getting Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks. And that's how I'm getting. I'm getting 2 of 3. Get 2 of 3 of the Packers and be happy.
Little Luke Musgrave.
Yeah, Luke. I love Luke Musgrave as my backup tight end and best ball as an underdog. Love it.
Yeah, no, love it, man. Okay, brother, listen. We got the 3 rounds. This is what we're here for. This is what I love talking about. It's been a hot minute. I'm really glad we had a chance to kind of like just talk out some of these players, because I am going to continue to work on the DFS Army rankings. I am working on it, people. I will try to get it out in the next couple of weeks, ideally no later than August 1st, so you have it for your drafts. And the way we like to build it is we like to do tiers, and that's why I like to talk with Brandon and just parse out these player takes, right? Like, where is a Stephon Diggs relative to a Tank Dell? And should he be in the same type of tier? So that's the type of thing that we like to do at dfsarmy.com. One thing I do want to shout out here, because our guy Mike Dickinson is in the Scott Fishbowl drafts, which that's super exciting for those of you who are involved in the industry. Like, you've probably heard it and you've seen it all over your X timeline. Keep in mind that the reason that they do that is for their Fantasy Cares charity. So go over fantasycares.org, and if you can donate anything to that charity, they do a lot of great things. This is Scott Fish, of course, and his charity. We're not affiliated with them at all, but it's just something that we both believe in here. And listen, Dickinson's representing the Flex Network /DFS Army in those drafts. And unfortunately for Brandon, he took George Kittle. Yay, George Kittle in that draft. But I don't want to open up a can of worms here. All right, brother. Okay, we're going to be back very soon. Go check out dfsarmy.com. If you made it to the end of this program, it means you like what you're watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell,
share,
and retweet our content, man, because we are trying to grow this channel. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Big time, knowing that.